Hello and welcome to Insight Live, the IT Experts Take. Today's topic is on generative AI strategies, a look at Insight's journey. And to help me out with this topic today, we have some very special guests. We have Joyce Mullen, President and CEO of Insight. And we have David McCurdy, Chief Enterprise Architect and CTO from Insight. And I am your host, Jason Rader, Insight's Chief Information Security Officer. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you very much. Great being here.
So we had a survey that we did before this, but I guess my topic is, or my opening question is generative AI still a thing?
I'll jump in right away, Jason. I think very much so. We actually, I've heard a few people saying, hey, we've had the big spark and maybe we're on some downturn, or maybe because other models come out, or maybe even the Google announcement that everything's shifting. But we actually asked some customers the other day this question, and they feel like we're only at the very beginning of this hype cycle, like the very, very beginning of it. They don't feel like the pressure's come off. If anything, they're feeling more and more. These are CIOs, pressures to understand the technology, understand how to deliver the technology, get ROI out of it, out of their businesses. So I think we're only at the very beginning.
And I would say that they're also feeling pressures from their boards, right? I mean, everybody's getting asked that question. We certainly had that question at our board meeting in May. So I think we're no different. It's going to be a topic for a while.
Yeah. And obviously, I don't believe that it's played out either, but I wanted to get the conversation going. I think we did a survey before our session today, and the question was, what's the main driver of your organization's AI strategy? And the options were technology, business, leadership, or crowdsourcing, and split right down three ways was technology, business, and leadership, which is an interesting kind of split. So the technology aspects, obviously, but the business and leadership, I think, are interesting that it was kind of split between those. And as a CEO of a technology company, Joyce, you probably have a unique take on that, or at least can give us some insight. What are your expectations of generative AI for Insight, or just in general?
Yeah, so I think, if I think about it in two ways. One is, what can we do internally to eliminate some of the soul-sucking jobs that we have in our organization, jobs that don't create joy for any of our teammates, jobs that nobody's excited about doing, but are required because of X, Y, and Z. It happens to be how we have to do things, systems, data, whatever. And to the extent we can augment the productivity of our teammates with tools like generative AI tools, I know we're going to be able to eliminate a bunch of these work hours and replace them with much higher value work hours, whether that's in our operations team, whether that's in our e-com teams, whether that's in our sales teams. I mean, providing our teammates with great insights, no pun intended, that helps them really understand what the next best action for them is and how they might create the most value in their day is going to be not only great for our clients, great for our teammates, it also is going to be great for Insight. So that's kind of one track. And then the other track is, what is our opportunity to demonstrate leadership with our clients, bring to them great ideas grounded in experience and best practice, so that we can help them on their ability to figure out how to leverage these technologies and improve their businesses. And that's super exciting. This is, AI has been around for a while. We've been doing it for a while. And I think that the opportunity for us to basically figure out how to increase the speed and the adoption of AI type technologies inside of their organizations comes naturally to us. And so helping them understand kind of what customers are doing in retail, or what customers are doing in energy production, or what customers are doing in banking or whatever is I think quite instructive to them. And also it gives them a little confidence in the use cases that we recommend, because they know they're not the first ones to try it. I think longer term, it's going to be really interesting. I think, a bunch of the work we do is based on knowledge that we've built up over time. So we probably have a 3-4 year period where we're going to help people figure out how to engage with technology, engage with this technology in particular, and leverage it for their to deliver the outcomes they're looking for. And then some of that work that we do today will be disintermediated by this technology because it'll become part of kind of the base of knowledge that everyone can tap into. So I think it's a wild ride. I think it is a huge, huge change for us to think about how to leverage these technologies. And it's, I think it's only going to get more interesting as we go forward, not less. So we have some great examples. David has some really great examples. David's leading our internal adoption of these technologies. So David, you should talk about some of those awesome examples we have that we've seen already just in a few, it's actually less than a month, really.
Yeah. What Joyce said is truthful. It's been a wild couple of months. It's been a journey. And Insight's journey with AI started years ago. We have quite a big practice, but specifically around generative AI, we've done something at Insight that I haven't heard a lot of organizations, just because of the nature of our business, where we sit, our partnership, some of that stuff. We rolled out generative AI worldwide to all of our teammates. And really the purpose for this is to understand the benefits of this technology, both internally, the ROI that Joyce talked about, but also for our customers. Our customers are going to ask some of the questions that we're going to run into. And so we want to find them, whether that's security related, whether that's best practice related, whether it's just what is the tool good at or not good at. And so we are crowdsourcing some of the ROI or the use cases, as Joyce talked about. And just my favorite one, we have a teammate works at a warehouse, and we created a community and essentially solicited feedback from all of our teammates. Hey, how is this technology improving your daily life? How's it helping you change your job or your role or whatever? Like we gave base carte blanche, figure out how to make the tool help you do your job better. And so they have a process where they were doing a very manual task, loading stuff up into SRP, our ERP system. So this is kind of inventory management type stuff. And the job was very manual. It was prone to a lot of errors, that type of stuff. And so they used our Insight GPT generative AI to basically learn, hey, how could I solve this problem better? How could I take this manual task and repeat it? So it taught them how to record scripts to automate this action. And then he brought another teammate in and say, hey, I want to repeat this over and over and over again. And between the two of them, they were able to knock this thing out. And so this manual process has existed as long as he's been there prior to him. And now they were both able to automate it and produce less errors, which is going to be better customer experience. So it's win, 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 win. Teammate learns, technology applied in the right use case, output better both for Insight and ultimately for our customer, right? So that's just one of the use cases we're running into. And I wouldn't even imagine this. Like when we said we were going to crowdsource this a month ago, like this was not on our radar. We were thinking, hey, this is going to help us write reports and some of the, content generation stuff. But this is a whole nother lane, which is really cool. We showed this use case to some of our customers the other day, just in terms of the power, and you could see eyes light up, right? Like, hey, this is a whole different thing.
And this teammate was so excited about what he's done. It's really fun to kind of see everybody pile on and say, "Wow, that's so cool!" And the fact that he used ChatGPT or Insight GPT to learn what to do, I thought that's not something that we are, like David said, we weren't thinking about, and then actually used it to do it. So I love that kind of curiosity. It's awesome.
Yeah, and imagine, Jason, this manual process, let's just say it's existed for 5 years. Say IT or the organization wanted to solve it. A ticket have to be created. You'd have to do some backlog. It'd have to be created. They'd bring a team in. Someone eventually say it's probably not worth the hours to put into it. Like the project, like just imagine, like this is going to be the power of acceleration that we're going to see in terms of solving these issues. The same way maybe Excel helped people that are using paper spreadsheets 20 years ago. This is going to help people do things that weren't possible without this kind of technology, even 6 months ago, 12 months ago? Yeah.
True. No, I love it. And just today we had an all hands meeting and we were asking people how they were using our Insight GPT, and somebody said that they were saving like something that took them 30 minutes after they were feeding stuff into it, and it was figuring out the data types. This was a developer side of the house. They said that used to take them 30 minutes. It takes them 2 now. So I mean, that's like legit ROI. And to both of your points, the problems that we solve for ourselves are the problems that, we can take those solutions to our clients, which is a magnificent relationship that we have. We've got a question from Matt on the back, and I think it's, basically we wanted to talk about our journey. So Matt, thanks for asking your questions. He asks, what are some of the guardrails that Insight thought through and are in place while we're building the Gen AI suite tools? David, you want to take a shot at that?
Sure. It's like, well, I mean, the journey began with, what is this technology? How can we best use it? What is the right thing for our teammates? What's the right thing for our customers? So one of the very first things I think we did in the industry is we created an internal policy for our teammates and communicated very clearly how we wanted them to interact with the tool. We reinforced over and over again that Insight data needed to be protected with Gen AI the same way we protect email or any other data type. And this applies to our customer data, our internal data. So what that means is what I call enterprise GPT, protecting data going into these models the same way you would protect any other way. And what that means is hosting private instances of this technology with some of our biggest partner and the same set of security layers. And you know this as well as I. Jason and I spent I don't know how many hours trying to understand this technology, because our customers are going to ask this question: where exactly is our data going? Where does it end? How is it secured? Like, this is critical. This is what IT is responsible for, is making sure that when we talk to our boss, we can speak very clearly, yes, our data is protected and our customers' data will be protected. So that is like the first step, is helping your teammates know how to use this technology and best practices. Other things come into play, like, how are you going to train your teammates on how to use it effectively? What are the do's and don'ts? And so we are maturing that offering. And ultimately, I think most organizations that leverage a lot of AI in the future, there will be a need for responsible AI subcommittees, that type of stuff. And so we are maturing that internally, and ultimately we're going to help our customers accelerate that as well, because it's almost changing daily. If it's weekly, but I think it's actually more like daily. This technology is iterating.
So the work that you two did together, David and Jason, was really, really important around the security piece, right? And then there's also training the teammates to understand that what the answers that they get might not always be right. So I think there is kind of one of our clients today in the same meeting that David was talking about suggested sort of a driver's license kind of type training before you're ready to really take the reins on ChatGPT or Insight. Saying that Insight GPT, because you got to manage it, and you got to make sure you're kind of taking the results with just a little bit of maybe a pragmatic sort of focus on the quality of the response and the legitimacy of the response, because there's a lot of wrong stuff that could come out of this. And so I think it's going to be an ongoing kind of training effort that we're going to have to make sure people really understand how to manage the Insight GPT responses, how to train them, how to develop them, how to improve them, and then also fact check the heck out of the data as it comes across.
To that point, we almost, I had it in the policy that you had to state that the data was through Insight GPT if you used it. We decided against that because we don't want to put a bunch of, heavy requirements for people using in PowerPoints and things like that. But we definitely, from our training perspective, we're training people to recognize the fact that it's not 100% accurate. We're happy if it's over 80% accurate usually. And it's one of those things where, you've got to, where's that data, cite your sources, those kinds of things becomes another part of the way we've got to leverage this. Just like, hearsay, I saw it on the internet. That's not necessarily going to be good enough for us. And that kind of goes to Ben's question that he sent. Thanks, Ben. It says, not to take a negative view, but were there any red flags raised during the crowdsourcing initiative? Perhaps a case where GPT was a stumbling block to productivity. And I don't necessarily think there was a stumbling block per se, but like in the example of where we have citizen developers, folks that can run scripts and those kinds of things, it was one of those things that we definitely wanted to address in policy and, again, get some training out related to, hey, if you can write code now, where can you run code and those kinds of things, leveraging this technology? Anything else on that, David?
No, I think it's an important question. And ultimately, the short answer is we have not run into any stumbling blocks, but I fully expect to. In fact, we're on the hunt to find them, right? Because if we can find them and we can prevent our customers from going through a very similar journey and add that, we got to ask this question very directly. What the number one thing that Insight can provide to our customers is the lessons learned and best practice and stuff like that. So we're actually on a hunt to find the goodness and even the badness in this technology. But no, I think the teammates have taken a very kind of open-minded approach to both understanding what the technology does, what it can't do. They've asked a lot of good questions. One of the things with crowdsourcing is we built a community. I think a pretty successful community with the launch, where we are answering the questions in as near real time as possible. So we're asking for both positive use cases, negative use cases, questions. They're asking for features to be added every single day. So we have a feature backlog of new requests that come in, and I can't fulfill that fast enough. But it tells you the power. And I don't know that crowdsourcing is the right thing for every single organization, at least not, but it is right for Insight because of where we want to be in terms of helping our customers down the road and ultimately learning as much about the technology as we can.
Thanks.
And-
Go ahead, please, Joyce.
And I was just going to say, I think the other thing about this notion of crowdsourcing is it's just like we thought of use cases that we didn't expect to see, we're going to see problems that we didn't expect to see. And I mean, obviously data quality is a huge part, is a piece of that. The hallucination type activity is a piece of that. Certainly deep fakes and kind of the impact of those are probably less of an issue inside of a company like Insight, but I mean, the same challenges apply. So again, it's back to this. I think we need to train everybody on a level of literacy to be a little bit skeptical of the results and just to verify.
Love it. So a great question. Tygo Campos, sorry if I butchered your name there. Hey guys, a lot of organizations have recently released similar offerings. Where do you see Insight fitting in this rapidly growing space? Great question. Joyce, do you want to take a shot at that?
Yeah, sure. So I think I would say the first thing is just as I articulated a few minutes ago, I mean, the first part of this is helping our clients understand what we've learned, what we've seen in other companies, bringing kind of a vendor agnostic perspective to our clients in terms of offering solutions and giving them a level of confidence about what has worked. We're having a lot of conversations. We have been for years now about how to use AI in their environments, how to get their data estate ready to be a useful set of inputs into kind of the problems, into solving these problems. So there's some sort of brick and mortar type stuff like that. I would say, is the data quality high enough? Where are you concerned about data quality? Is it accessible? Less and less, I think we'll have to be worried about the structure of the data, because one of the beauties of this technology is it kind of cuts through that. But as David told me, I thought very, that initially when I first heard about this, I thought, okay, maybe we don't need to actually invest in CRM, or we don't need to invest in some of these SaaS applications. And I think we're probably a little ahead of the capabilities still, but I think those requirements will peter out over time, or lessen over time for sure. And then I think the other thing is so through those use cases, demonstrating and helping our clients figure out how to set their organizations up so they can do some of the same things that David was talking about. This notion of using our internal journey to help clients through their own journeys is, I think, quite a powerful one. And so we expect to be able to help clients through via consulting, via managed services around their environment, et cetera, et cetera. Certainly there's going to be infrastructure spend. I just heard Lisa Su this morning on Bloomberg talking about the fact that this hardware business is going to be $150 billion in a couple of years just to support this. So there's infrastructure, reference architectures that we're building so that we can help our clients who are interested in building their own environments to support this is another opportunity. But as I said, I think some of the services and consulting work over time will be disintermediated as these models get even more effective. And so we're going to have to keep working on the leading edge. What is the leading edge of these technologies, and how do we drive adoption and value with our clients?
Totally. Now, I think that's another, why Insights Journey is kind of important to folks out there is, we've got such an expansive set of capabilities that we leverage to our clients. We leveraged it for ourselves as well. And that's, how we were able to go quickly and think about the different elements. But a full solution's got business consulting, it's got the infrastructure, it's got, experts in the different areas, the front end development, the back end development, the data. All of those things have to come together to create the solution. And I think that's, one of those things that differentiates Insight from some of the other folks out there with offerings. But yeah, I mean, there's loads of folks, and we wanted to get as quick to market as possible as well. But I think, we took that approach that we feel that we're learning a lot from, and we can share that. Matt's got a question out here. Thanks, Matt. One area I've seen a lot lately is around prompt creation and getting better at helping the model provide the best output. Is Insight doing anything related to that? David, I know you've got some comments related to getting our prompts sorted out.
Prompt engineers is a whole new category.
Right on. Maybe Joyce should answer this question.
No, David should answer it.
No, I think prompt engineering will be a key discipline kind of going forward. I don't know how long. There's actually a debate internally before the system's mature enough that you don't actually have to train for it. But it is how you craft your prompts, how you set them up is key to driving hallucinations out of your answers. So that when we talk about hallucinations or you're giving wrong answers, one of the key things we can do to limit that is crafting better prompts and also adding data to our prompts. And there is, every day I learn kind of a new advanced form of prompt engineering, whether that's tone, whether that's asking the AI to talk as a specific person, but also like some of the stuff that you can really do when we think of traditional client server apps is you can craft the size of the response back to single words or single digits. So you can feed those into computer systems like yes, no, things like that. So we actually give a demo to our customers. This is part of what we do when we go into our departments and talk about how can we drive ROI out, repeatable ROI. We want to understand what is the best prompt for X outcome, especially for repeatable tasks, because you have a lot of time to really nuance that prompt out. And little changes to prompts create vastly different outputs, whether positive or negative, that type of stuff. So I think it's key. I think what Joyce said, it is the new discipline of the future. And because it's essentially language or English, it's not hard to get on. But like today, as part of our training materials, we have courses for prompt engineering that were just made available to us, but we're actually going back and we're going to craft some insight specific what we've learned, and we're going to try to take the next step and even create better material than we're even finding out there, because it's changing every day. And part of it's kind of an interesting thing that I'm seeing is I'm after what this technology does well. Like, for example, we know it summarizes well. We know it creates content well. And the more things that we know it does well, the more things we can combine. I mean, if we combine them in different ways, we can do things that we'd never done before. And so I call that a widget hunt, but that goes directly to this question. It's about crafting the right prompt for the right output, and for those repeatable high ROI use cases, spending a lot of time to get that as perfect as can. And it will actually eliminate a lot of the stuff that we talked about here in terms of bad data or hallucinations. Not completely, like there's an argument that will never be completely gone, but it definitely does a lot to limit the possibility of that.
Hey, David, I just checked your answer against Insight GPT, and you're pretty good. So it says, understand your users, set up, establish guidelines, practice, make sure you think about the feedback that you're getting and adjust, and then invest in continuous learning around workshops and courses. Not bad.
Yeah, I'm not going to answer whether I actually did the same thing, and that's my response.
So we got another question. Betsy is asking something kind of like prompt engineering. When compiling the data to inject into the Insight trained model, do you have Do you limit the date range to ensure the output has the latest information, or how do you compensate for potential hallucinations with conflicting information over time?
So there is a key part of the technology that's emerging. And when we talk to Microsoft, OpenAI, Google, I think the answer is going to be the same from AWS as well. There's this new technology called it's actually not new, but it's essentially a vector database for storing some of this information. And it has advanced AI search. And so what actually is happening is there's a couple of ways to use the model with your data. One is what's called tuning or training, and that can take a lot of CPU time. It's not perfect.
Right.
What we're finding though is this Microsoft cognitive search or vector database. Google's equivalent is their vector AI quick response application. Essentially, what you're going to do is, as Joyce said earlier, we're going to help you structure your data, put in, make sure it's clean, ready to go, and then ultimately we're going to load this vector database, and that is what's actually going to be searched and added to your question to make a more real-time or company-specific or output-specific prompt. But what she said there is very key. One of the values of that data is how old is it? Because something from 1995 should be ranked lower than something from 2022. And so that's a new data element that may not be there, but we're going to add to help with that output. But that's a great question, and it's something that's emerged over the last month and a half or so as kind of a key part of this technical architecture going forward.
And depending on whether it's structured or unstructured data, whether you want to do some meta tagging, there's all kinds of different approaches, which again, where it gets a little more complex than just using a GPT. There's combinations of different types of tech that are going to get you there.
Yeah, what is kind of, I don't know if it's a misconception or it's just so early. The actual cognitive search supercomputer, let's just call it a supercomputer. So ChatGPT or InsightGPT or Bard, they have a finite limit of how much information they can take in. And so we have to be very thoughtful in what information we feed it. And that kind of goes directly to the question, well, how do you choose what information to go in? Well, this is the secret sauce. This is what's going to differentiate the companies that do that well and the companies that don't even really understand it, right? It's definitely an accelerator.
Is it worthy, as we're talking about our journey, I just wanted to kind of bring up one thing that I think is an interesting anecdote. Back in 2022, when we were budgeting for this year, we didn't put aside a budget for any of this. So, and I do think, as we collaborate and cooperate with the folks across the business, I do think it's interesting, David, the story that you said where, you talked about demoing to different parts of the organization, that it was your demo to finance that finally made them go, okay, we understand that there could be an ROI on that. And I think that's a great aspect as well, is that, even, when presented with the opportunity, everybody gets on board with this when they're shown.
It's always a tricky thing that you should always start with the business problem first, right? Like, how can I help you? When you go talk to a customer, it's like, what is the business problem we're trying to solve, rather than just take this technology and jam it in? Because this technology you should not put this technology in charge of a nuclear power plant. You should not take this technology and use it in life safety applications. But there are some very good use cases. The really tricky part is helping the customer understand what it can do, but also understand where there's opportunity, right? Where are these monotonous tasks that Joyce talked about? They're just repetitive. And I think she used the term soul sucking as well. Like, just do it over and over and over and over and over. And that person, that role can be lifted up if we can take that off the plate. It's a hard thing. I mean, this is digital transformation, right? We still have to work with the customer to help them understand how this can help or not. But every department we've sat down with and just understood what challenges they had, it's just multiplying every day, the number of things we learn that it can actually do. But then we have to actually test and validate that it can actually deliver the results they want. So it's not just taking it and applying it and walking on to the next one. It's actually making sure it's doing what we think it's doing and producing a ROI that's valuable. And honestly, the output that we want, that it's either truthful or it's high enough probability to be valuable to the company. These are all things we're having to look at.
And I just back to that ROI point. So I do feel like it's incumbent upon us as leaders to figure out how to put a little pressure in the system to make sure that benefit accrues to our teammates for sure, accrues because they don't have to do some monotonous work anymore, accrues to our clients in terms of incremental value, accrues to our partners because we sort of are more deliberate or more effective representing the technologies that we support, et cetera. But it also has to accrue to the company. And so Arvind Krishna did something pretty interesting about a month ago. He basically came out and said, this is going to really change a lot of things. We're going to stop. I think I'm paraphrasing. I might have it a little wrong, but basically we're going to hold off on hiring in certain areas when those are the areas where we think we're going to see the productivity boost. So we don't want to get ahead of ourselves and then be in a position where we have to correct it. But we also want to put some pressure on sort of realizing those benefits. And I told this story a couple of times, but one of my kids or their friends is a developer, and so he was telling me how he figured out how to improve. He basically took 10 hours of time out of the development of this project a software project he was working on. And I said, okay, that's awesome. But then what did you do with that time? He said, oh, I went rock climbing. And so that's, I think, a really great example. That's good. It's really good for him. But how do we encourage adoption because it helps meet a business goal, which is delivering improved productivity and efficiency? And I think that requires that we manage it really carefully. We don't want to make this punitive in any way. We want to make it so that this is a way to get to the business targets that we have or the business outcomes that we're looking for.
Well said. We've got another question. Milton asks, in which specific domains has generative AI shown significant potential? I guess kind of in our use case category there. David, anything you haven't mentioned that's worthy of talking about here?
I just listening to my customers over the last couple of weeks. One of the things we're hearing over and over is review of materials and large documents like contracts, extracting context from a document that would take hours long to go through, and being able to help the co-pilot zero in on that data. And then ultimately solve problems. We're hearing that use case over and over and over. So it's amazing at summarization. It's actually incredible at summarization. If you really understand how the tech works, like one of our teammates asked this question yesterday. It's like, but if it's doing this, how is it so right? And that's an interesting question. But definitely summarization of large documents like contracts or anything like that is a great use case. We're also looking at applying it to chatbots. And this is something that Jason and I found with one of our teams. So it seems obvious we're going to improve chatbots. They're going to get a lot smarter. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're finding new ways to provide higher customer service with data both in and outside the chatbots. I think it's going to transform the customer service experience, whether that is chat to human, human to human. Like there's some amazing things that I won't say too much there. But we're finding some amazing accelerators, specifically in some of the help desk use cases.
Software development is probably another one, right? Because the QA associated and troubleshooting associated with software development was a pretty onerous process. And that's talk about soul-sucking work. That is soul-sucking work, right? Like going through character by character, try to figure out where an error is.
Yeah, I've heard anecdotally developers that it take them hours to find a bug in the code. It immediately finds those bugs, and then they can figure out the solution as opposed to searching for the problem the whole time.
Yeah, Matt Jackson, our global CTO, quoted a figure the other day. We believe it's 56% increase in productivity for software developers. And we're not sure we think that figure is probably low, but those are the initial, that is an incredible increase in productivity. If you can get more lines of code out with better quality, it's essentially going to change the world, because you can be able to produce more applications. And we've seen over the last 30 years of technology, there's almost an unlimited number of applications you create, which just creates more productivity and ultimately grows the economy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And since there's a shortage of developers in the world, this is helpful.
Totally. Charles asks, and it's an interesting question, spoke earlier about learning prompts, inputs to help determine desired output. Any feedback regarding AI's learning, and if there's any prep learning before AI that can complete its solution? So maybe a quick, the difference between training the model versus injecting the data aspects, David.
Yeah, it's a tricky subject. I don't know that I can communicate this effectively and right, but the model uses a couple of technologies to learn, and one is reinforcement learning, which is basically taking large volumes of data and submitting it over and over and over and giving it a essentially a score, and you tell the model to achieve a higher score to win, right? And then you just throw massive amounts of data, and it's actually reduced over time. It used to be just millions of data points. So like, this is an apple, like a million times from a different angle. That's kind of a image-based one. But even with language, we did the same thing. We just rolled it. And so when you train your own model, you're literally taking thousands of chat conversations or thousands of documents that maybe you have, and you're like doing this reinforcement learning. That takes a long time, and you have to have high quality data, and it can produce some amazing results. And there are great use cases for doing that. But the accelerator to that is grabbing your information out of one of these vector databases or even a client server database, throwing it in the prompt, what I call side loading the prompt, and producing a result almost instantaneously, which better results in some cases than even training the model. And so these are the two ways, but definitely the prompt insertion is the thing that's emerging as the most value back to organizations.
Yeah, for right now anyway. And those trained models, once they're trained, they're locked, right? Until you train them again, which goes through all the computational aspects again.
Yeah, frozen in time. Despite what you're told, they're frozen in time, and there's a number of technologies that actually simulate it not being frozen in time. So some of the technologies that are being employed, we think, are just basic client. Hey, if you see this statement, it's political or what, just replace it with X. Like, just traditional client server over the prompt. A lot of people think it's training these models on the fly and it's learning. Sometimes the models, just the way they generate data, come out with completely different results. And there's things you can do to actually force that with some of the variable counters that OpenAI and some of the other models have given you to influence that. But I think what you said is pretty key from a security perspective. So if we're looking at it from an IT technology perspective, these models are locked in time. They're frozen. And that's important from a security perspective, but the technologies we put around it that make it look unfrozen and up to date and more real time with your data are critical to solving this lock in time problem. So you actually have to look at it both ways if you're a technologist.
Love it. And we got one more question from Tiago, and that'll probably be our last, because I think both of you guys have to catch flights at some point in time. And thanks for staying as long as you have. And I'll paraphrase the question, but basically it's saying we've seen lots of companies have complained about skills shortages in the past for other types of skills. Do we feel that there may be an issue with skills around AI, and that there won't be enough to kind of deal with the demand at this point? Joyce, that's probably a good one for you.
You know, I guess it will depend how fast this takes shape and how fast it grows. But what I'm so encouraged about was really the first example that David talked about, because I think we can use the technology to actually increase our skills faster than we could have maybe, a year ago or 2 years ago. So I think these types of skills will be increasingly in demand. I heard, I don't know if David, if it was you or Matt, but one of it was we talked about how teammates' jobs are not going to be replaced by chatbots or by generative AI. They're going to be replaced by people who know how to use this technology better. So I think this is why we're kind of working so hard to force adoption internally, so that we can represent the opportunities to internally, but also so we can bring these same capabilities to our clients. So I'm really encouraged by the fact that we think we can increase our training effectiveness using these tools, and I think that'll help allay some of the concerns. But we got to be curious, and we got to be forced, I think, into adoption.
Love it. And we usually kind of close the session. Thank you guys both again. With kind of some words of encouragement. We've got folks out here that watch that maybe feel like they were left behind a little bit because they weren't on the very, very leading edge of this type of technology. Joyce as a business leader, David as a CTO, what would you guys say from that perspective? What words of wisdom or advice would you give to folks out there? Oh, sorry.
If you haven't started using it already, start using it and use it every day and use it for something. I mean, or test it out, test out Bard. I mean, figure out what you can learn. That was, I think, number 2 or 3 on David's list of things to do to become a prompt engineer.
David, any final words?
I think Joyce said it. Be curious. This is the fastest growing technology or app, ChatGPT, but I think the whole technology spectrum around it, like we're seeing other models come out, it's actually delivering real value right away. So the hype cycle is real. We're very early on it, but also the value is real and you can extrapolate it. So be curious and learn, find where the value is. And where it's not performing appropriately, like move on, right? Or ask your teammates around you, hey, am I using it right? That type of stuff. But I think the common message, just be curious because there's a value to be had there and it's only going to get better. We're at the very, very beginning of this.
Love it. And, from my perspective, again, realize that you're dealing with data. Some of that's privileged data. Some of that is, all of it is something that you should consider as you're leveraging these types of solutions. But I think, what I really love about what we're doing right here is sharing our experience, and I hope we'll do a check-in maybe 6 months or so and kind of talk about where we've come in the last 6. But really exciting stuff, disruptive technology, and super excited to be on a team where we've got folks as excited as we do on this call as well in our services and solution organization. So if you guys want to know more about what we do here at Insight, please visit us at solutions.insight.com. Thanks for joining us. Joyce, David, you guys rock. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, David. See you later.